Hi people, Ray from Work here again. In this video, this is the first video by the way on a new playlist that I'm going to do, in which I simply evaluate movies and the occult merit that they have in reality. So basically movies that have an occult topic or an occult undertone, as in a scary movie about a ghost or a spirit, and I'm going to simply analyze it and tell you exactly how true that movie is. So how true it correlates or aligns with reality. So let's start. First movie that I'm going to discuss, you'll have to excuse me. The first movie that I'm going to discuss is about a forest in Japan that I think most of you are familiar with that are into horror movies and whatnot, called Aokigahara Forest or Mountain. Hold on. About Aokigahara Forest. It's at the foot of a mountain. Keep in mind that the knowledge I have is the same knowledge that you can look up online. So I'm not 100% sure or on the specific details relating to these movies. But that doesn't matter. For me, the occult merit of it matters, as should be the case for most of you, or at least for all of you, or at least most of you. Yeah, in any case, there is a movie done by an actress the actress that starred in a movie about Aokigahara Forest, Natalie Dormer. She's a well-known Game of Thrones actress for the popular series Game of Thrones in the past. And the movie is called The Forest. It's just called The Forest. And it is about Aokigahara Forest. I'm noticing here that there are multiple movies inspired by it, but I'm simply going to list the movie The Forest as an example. Okay, that is, as far as I know, the latest movie. Yeah, it's the last movie that was done based on this phenomenon. Long story short, the movie is about a forest called Aokigahara Forest, obviously, that is also called Suicide Forest. It's in Japan specifically, and it sits at the foot of Mount Aokigahara, a mountain by the same name. And this forest is known because, or it's better said notorious, because a lot of people go over there to commit suicide. Okay, it doesn't matter how they commit suicide. Most of them hang themselves to tree branches and whatnot. But bottom line is that people go there. General consensus is that people go there to commit suicide. People that are suicidal go there to commit suicides, and they regularly have volunteer parties. So people that volunteer for cleaning up bodies of dead people and collecting their bones to give them a proper burial and whatnot, going in there. And a lot of people that have tried to commit suicide, for example, and even people that haven't, generally say that there is a weird vibe coming from Aokigahara Forest. There's a weird vibe coming from the suicide forest, as in you feel strangely drawn to it. And especially people that have ideas of suicide, okay, in their minds or in their heads, are drawn to that forest to do the same thing that people that came before them did, commit suicide. Okay, you can find the link. You can find links in the description to the movie trailer, as well as other interesting links in the description below, and also in the end screen, so at the end of this video. And yeah, that's pretty much the plot of the movie. Okay, the actress's character goes to the forest, and she ends up trapped there, as far as I can remember. I watched this movie years ago. It was released in 2016, around that time. And I watched this movie. This was like 4 years ago. And I watched the movie, but I was kind of disappointed in it. But yeah, I have high expectations. As an occultist, nothing scares me, honestly. So yeah, I just watched the movie, and I remember the actress being stuck in that forest due to the spirits of the dead keeping her stuck there, and she cries in the end. And it turns out that she's also committed suicide without her being aware of it. And in the end, she becomes aware of the fact that she killed herself, because I think she sees her body, or she sees that she cut her own wrists in astral form, of course. So her spirit is seeing that, and she's like, "Oh my God, I killed myself." That's when she came to that realization. So that is the plot, shortly summarized, of said movie. If you want to give it a watch, knock yourself out. And now I'm going to immediately get on over to the occult merit of this movie. Does this movie have merit, and if so, to which extent or to what extent does it have merit? Yeah, this movie does have a cult merit. In short, yes, it does have merit, in the sense that that forest, okay, you'd have to go back to the roots of when when all of this started. But I think, as I can remember it starts with, I think, keep in mind, I'm not sure about this. I think it started when, I think around medieval times, or maybe a couple of centuries ago, roughly estimated. People started discarding those that they couldn't take care of. I think during a Japanese famine area, or when people had difficulty with food and maintaining themselves and staying alive, they simply left children and the elderly and the sick on top of that mountain or near the foot of that mountain. And they simply, it's like basically bringing a lost dog, or bringing a dog that you don't want anymore to the forest, knowing that he won't be able to follow you back home, by tying him to a tree or something horrible. Okay, of course it sounds horrible, but yeah, that's simply a necessary measure that people took in order to stay alive. The elderly, the sick, and the young that weren't able to provide for the family were discarded at a certain point, and they wanted to do it humanely, so they simply left people in mountains, or they left people in forests where they knew that those people would not be able to make their way out again. They'd get lost. I think that is the potential and possible source of where it all started in relation to the suicide forest, in relation to Mount Aokigahara and forest of the same name. In any case, yeah, it does have a cult merit, and the reason that people feel drawn to that forest is because the dead are calling out to them. People that, generally speaking, commit suicide, they die under macabre and under horrible circumstances. You die under macabre and horrible circumstances. So, make no mistake, in general, when people die under unpleasant circumstances, they refuse to either accept the fact that they're dead, or they have other negative emotions such as hatred, regret, resentment, anger, and whatnot, that prevents them from moving on to higher planes of existence, so the higher astral planes, so the afterlife, as the mundane person likes to call it. And these people simply lash out. The same way that if you're angry to the point where you're blinded by rage or by anger or any other negative emotion, sadness, sorrow, you name it. If someone asks you something, some people have the tendency to lash out at others, as in, "Well, don't ask me anything." Even though they know that that person is innocent, that person didn't do them anything, didn't harm them, but you're just quelled with anger or with any other negative emotion, which makes it so that you automatically try to react that same emotion off on others. And that's how all of it works, okay? These people are simply, generally speaking, they were discontent with their lives, and the dead simply roam that forest, and they lash out at others. They lash out at the living in an indirect sense by inviting them to come to do the same thing that they did, as in, "Hey, you're suicidal, come on over, this is a perfect spot to commit suicide, join us." That kind of deal. So yeah, that is the occult merit that this thing has. I remember seeing videos too, like I said, of volunteer parties, so groups of people that were volunteers. They volunteered to clean up the remains of the dead, and they went in there, and the forest has the stereotypical characteristics or trademarks of any haunted forest or any haunted location. It's abnormally quiet. We're talking about, you don't even hear any animals, nothing, as far as I know, nothing, no animals, none. Because the animals know not to go near these kind of places because they're going to die, okay, or they're going to get seriously injured, and they're going to get hurt by those dead people or by those malevolent spirits that reside there. Keep in mind that these dead people are also, like I said, they're filled with negative emotions, so they're automatically malevolent in the sense that they'll do you more harm than good. You might find one good amongst them, but that one good one is just an example, it's just an exception, out of the 9 other baddies. And and yeah. And what else was I gonna say? And yeah, that's pretty much it. I saw video footage of them collecting bones, putting them in bags. And these volunteer parties, they use explicit ways to make sure that they don't get lost. I also have another video in my playlist called Story Time, in which I explain to. So one thing that spirits also like to do is to have people get lost in places like forests and woods and outbacks and whatnot, by simply trapping them in a time vacuum. I discuss all of this in a separate movie. You can also find that in the end screen or in the description below, in which I explain as well as the playlist to the entire story thingy, story time playlist, the link to the story time playlist, just for added effect. But yeah, so yeah, these volunteer parties, or these parties of volunteers, they take explicit measures to see to it that they don't get lost, as in going in with the modernist of equipment, and I think going in with the rope that they tie to civilization, and then they drag it all the way back. And all of them do that, so that even if one of their ropes get cut, they can still find their way back. In any case, they take measures to be sure of the fact that they can find their way back, or they stay within the outskirts or outside the outskirts of said forest. But bottom line is that they go above and beyond to see to it that they don't get lost, and they better do so, because the dead will also make you get lost in there. Any malevolent entity will try to make you get lost, and that actually has the proficiency to do so. Whether the dead have the proficiency to do that, I am unsure of, but it doesn't matter what kind of spirit it is, okay? As long as that person has gained proficiency through experience, then yeah, he or she or it will be able to do so. But yeah, keep that in mind. Generally speaking, yeah. Now, even if you have a modern compass with you, you have a GPS, you have everything, make no mistake, none of it will stop working. You can have a dog with you that knows the way, a hunting dog, for example, or anything like that, no. And similar to my story time video, no, the dog even will get lost, and despite the fact that you're maybe only 50 meters or 50 yards removed from your house or from civilization, you'll get lost. You'll keep walking in circles, and nothing's going to make sense. Because that spirit is literally trapping you in an astral time vacuum to the point where you keep going in circles beyond any kind of logical or rational explanation. And yeah, that's pretty much the merit that Aokigahara Forest has. So yeah, check out all the links in the description below if you like, and check out the end screen. Bye.